Sir, cerebellum ke cerebellum?
Cerebellum.
Yes, sir. Sir, it is the part of the hindbrain. It helps in the involuntary actions such as breathing, sleeping, heartbeat, and walking.
Okay. और कोई? So first we'll see cerebellum is one of the important structure which involved in voluntary movement. It takes participate in planning and execution of the voluntary movement. At the same time, it acts as a surveillance and continuously monitor the voluntary movement. Okay, so it is not an involuntary movement, but it is a voluntary movement in which the cerebellum part. How it differ from the cerebrum? Cerebrum has a gray matter outside and white matter inside, while cerebellum has a white matter outside and gray matter inside. If you see the anatomically, cerebellum has a two surface, superior surface and inferior surface, which is on inferior surface is on occipital bone, while superior surface is on the tentorium cerebra. Then it has a folia, which is superior of the cerebellum into the numerous transverse folias will be there. Folia is like they have foldings. So these are the different foldings will be there. Too many foldings will be there. And when the folding goes much deeper, that considered as a fissure. So it has a primary fissure, then horizontal fissure and posterolateral fissure. So this is a primary fissure, this is horizontal fissure, and this is called posterolateral fissure. This primary fissure is a V-shaped and it forms the anterior lobe. It separates the anterior lobe from the cerebellum. While horizontal fissure separates the cerebellum from the inferior surface. While posterolateral surface is forms the anteriorly to the inferior surface of the cerebral hemisphere. Okay. Then come to the different part of the cerebrum. Cerebrum is divided into two cerebral hemisphere and central median vermis. Median vermis has a different parts and it is divided from superior to inferior. Superior surface, then come to lingula, central lobules, then clumen, then declive, folium, tuber, pyramis, uvula, and nodule. So it is started from here, goes like this, from upper portion lingula, uh, central lobule, cumen, declive, then folium, then tuber, then pyramis, then uvula, and then nodule. And there is a superior and inferior surface on this median vermis. Then come to the cerebral hemisphere. It is divided into three lobes: anterior lobe, posterior lobe, and floccular lobes. Anterior lobe, which lies anterior to the primary fissure, that is called anterior lobe, and it is made up of vermis part contain lingula, central lobule, and cumulum. There is a two ali and anterocondylar lobules in the part of the anterior lobules. While if you come to the posterior lobules, it formed with a declive and folium, and which are the posterior condylar lobules and superior semilunar lobule from the hemisphere. While flocculonodular lobule is formed with a tuber, pyramis, uvula, and nodule, and also inferior semilunar lobule and biventral lobule of the tonsil and flocculus. This will form a flocculonodular lobule. Okay. Then phylogenetically means developmentally also divided into three different parts. So archicerebellum, which is one of the oldest part and which we will see in a very lower animal like reptiles and all those things. So it made up of only two portions, that is flocculonodular lobes and lingula. Then come to paracerebellar cerebellum, which develop later in the evolutions and a little bit higher animals, and it contains anterior lobe, complete anterior lobe, except lingula, and also part of the posterior lobe, that is pyramis, uvula, and parafolliculus. While neocerebellum is the latest part which develop in very highly complex animals like human, chimpanzees, and all those things, and which is a whole posterior lobe except pyramis and uvula is called as a neocerebellum. They functionally also differ. So we'll see how the functional division will be there. Then functionally it is divided into three parts: vestibulocerebellum, which include foconodular and which has a vestibular connections and which is more concerned with the position of the body and maintenance of equilibrium and posture. Then come to cerebellum, spinocerebellar cerebellum, and it contains entire anterior lobe except lingula and part of the posterior lobes like pyramis, uvula, and flocculus nodulus. And it contains nucleus glossulus and nucleus embryoniformis, and it receives the proprioceptive inputs from the different part of the body through the spinal cord, and it is main concern with the postural reflexes. Then come to the corticocerebellum. Corticocerebellum has a connection with the central cerebellum and with the cortex. And it involves almost complete posterior lobe except pyramis and uvula. And it contains nucleus dentatus and its effector nucleus. And it also occupies the lateral region of the cerebral cortex and also receives the information from the cerebral cortex and pons, and is more concerned about the skilled voluntary movements. Okay. Then come to the histological structure of the cerebellum. ये पार्ट पढ़ाया नहीं है ना मैंने आपको? सब सो गए?
नो सर, नो सर, अभी तक नहीं पढ़ाया।
Okay. Then come to the histological structure. If you see the horizontally, if you see histological structure, cerebellum divided into cerebral cortex, white matter, and deep cerebellar nuclei. So outer cortex will contain outer light layer of the gray matter. Then there is a more of the white matter fibers, which is usually contain both afferent and infferent fibers coming from the center of the core of the cerebellum, and then it contains deep cerebral nuclei. These are usually gray matter which is present within the medullary cores. Then those deep cerebral nucleus, if you see the cross section, cerebellum divided into three layers. One is a molecular layer, that is the most superficial layer. So this is example of molecular layer. Then come to the Purkinje cell layer. So this is Purkinje cell layer. And granular layer, that is inner layer. Okay, this is called granular layer. So there are the three different layer will be there. Now come to the molecular layer. Molecular layer contain different type of the cell, and these cells are start with like a stellate cells, which is a small star shaped cell, which is very superficially present. So this is example of stellate cells, which superficially located, and it sends the dendrite synapses, and it synapses with the parallel fibers, which comes from the granular cells, and axons of the stellate cell will synapse with the dendrites of Purkinje cells. So this is example of granular cells, and this is a example of Purkinje cells. So these are the examples of Purkinje cells. Okay. Then come to the basket cell is also present in the cellular, and it also receives input from the parallel fibers, and its axons as a branches and form around network of the branches around the Purkinje cells, and it look like a basket. That's why name is given basket cells. And each basket cell will synapses with the about 100 different Purkinje cells. So there is a lot of synapses going on this cerebellum. Then come to the Purkinje cell layer, which is a middle layer. These are the large cell, flask shape or pyramid shape or teardrop type of the shape of the cells, which is one of the biggest neuron present in our body, considering the uh, body of the neurons. Uh, so dendrites coming from these Purkinje fibers goes into the molecular layer and provide huge surface for the synapses with the stellate cells and basket cells. The axons coming from cells of the Purkinje cells are connected with the deep cellular nucleus and usually goes to the medullary core. Uh, uh, and it is a Purkinje cells is the only output of the cerebellar cortex. So the output is coming only through the Purkinje cells, and it is usually inhibitory type present on a cerebellar and ventral vestibular nucleus. So it is usually causes inhibition of the both deep cerebellar nuclear and vestibular nucleus. Then come to the inner layer cells, that is granular cells. It contains two types of the cells, granule cells and Golgi cells. The granule cells are very small and they are numerous. Billions type of the cells, you will almost 10 billion cells are about present in cerebellum, and the axons of these granular cells forms the parallel fibers, and these parallel fibers will goes and synapses with the Purkinje cells, stellate cells, basket cells, and Golgi cells. That usually forms the excitatory synapses. So the granular cells usually excitatory type of the cell. Then come to the Golgi cells. Golgi cells are larger cell as compared to granular cells, and they are less numerous as compared to granular cells. And the dendrites will receive the input from the parallel fibers. So from the granular cells, they receive the input from the parallel fibers, and these inputs will form the another collateral with the fibers of the Purkinje cells, and also with the climbing fibers, and their axons will form extensively and make the inhibitor synapses with the dendrites of the granule cells. Okay, so if you see out of these all, maximum cells are inhibitory type of the cell, except this granule cells, which usually excitatory type of the synapses. This is what I was want to mention. Out of all five neuron cells, only granular cells is the excitatory. Sorry, only granular cells is the excitatory, and it releases the excitatory transmitter, that is the glutamate. While all other four different neurons, they are usually inhibitory type of the cells. Okay. Then come to the connections of the okay, then come to the input to the cerebral cortex. The sensory input cerebral cortex is received from the two types of the fiber, the climbing fibers and Mosey fibers. So climbing fibers usually arise from the inferior olivary nucleus and it reach to the cerebrum through the oliocerebral tract. These climbing factors connected one-on-one to the Purkinje cells and gives the excitatory discharge to the Purkinje cells. Collateral of the climbing factor also synapses with other type of the neurons, and, which are present usually in deep cerebral nucleus. While Mosey fibers, they are how come from the different part of the body, usually coming from the spinocerebral, vestibulocerebral, reticulocerebral, corneocerebral, corticocerebral, and they together form synaptic connection with dendrites of granular cells and forming synaptic glomerulus. The network of the granules will form, and that is called synaptic glomerulus, and this usually end into inhibitory type of the response to the Golgi cell. Each Mosey fibers will activate at least 450 Purkinje cells through the granular cells and their parallel fibers. So climbing factors is excitatory, while Mosey fibers are usually inhibitory type. Then come to the white matter of the cerebellum. There is fibers which are present within the cerebellums. So there are projection fibers which come within the cerebellum. So from the cerebellum, part comes to the various fibers connected with the central nervous system, and they arrange into three bundles. So cerebellum is connected to the brain through the three bundles. That is inferior cerebral peduncle, which is usually consists of the fibers which connect with the medulla. That is usually coming from the tracts going to the spinal tracts. Then middle cerebral peduncles, which is usually connect our cerebellum with the pons, and superior cerebral connector, which connect with the cerebellum to the midbrain. And these connections will use huge communications between the cerebellum and brain. Then there is association fibers which connect the different part of the both part of the cerebral hemisphere with each other, and then commissural fibers where the two cerebellar cortex will forms a connection with each other. Then come to the nuclear structures which present within the cerebellum. They are called deep cerebellar nucleus, and it started with one of the largest nucleus, that is a dentate nucleus, and it is because of its typical teeth-like structure is there. That's why it is called dentate nucleus, and it receives the fibers from superior cerebral peduncle. So this is an example of dentate nucleus, and it receives the fibers from the cerebellar peduncle. Then come to the another nucleus, that is emboniform nucleus. So this is the emboniform nucleus. It is small oval mass which is present at the hilum of the dentus. That is in between the center of the dentus nucleus. Then come to the globulus nucleus. Globusus nucleus. This globusus nucleus lies just middle to the emboniform nucleus, and together these two both nucleus together are also called as a nucleus interpositus. Then come to the one smallest nucleus, that is fastigial nucleus or nucleus fastigia. This is very close to the midline and is present at the roof of the fourth ventricles. Now come to the various circuits. So this like a basal ganglia, the cerebellum also work through the various circuit, and these neuronal connections within cerebral ganglia usually form the intrinsic circuits, and which modulates the timing of the output coming from the deep cerebral nucleus via Purkinje fibers. So it is actually a matter of the timing for at what duration and how much duration output should go from the cerebellum, and this is done with the different connections which present in the different part of the bodies. And this entire process of this nuclear circuitry and its activity can be discussed with the afferents coming from the cerebral cortex, neural activity which is intrinsic into the cerebellar circuit, and neural activity of the deep cerebral nucleus. So first we'll talk about the afferents which coming to the cerebellar cortex. So there are two afferents which are coming. These slides will repeat again. आपको लग रहा है पुरानी बता रहा हूँ, but it is important to understand this. So first fibers which are coming are climbing fibers. These are usually arise from the inferior alveolar nucleus and reach to the cerebellum via alveocerebellar tract. These forms one-to-one connection with the Purkinjes and provide the excitatory discharge to the Purkinje cells. While it also forms a collateral with the climbing fibers, synapses with them, and it also influences the functioning of deep cerebellar nucleus. The second afferent is coming from the Maury fibers. These are coming from the different part of the body, and it gives the information to the cerebellum regarding the contraction of the muscles, rate of the contraction of muscles, tone present on the muscle, tension present on the muscle, actual length of the muscles, intensity of the force generated by the muscle. All these will come through this spinal cerebral, vestibular cerebral, and position of the body also. All the cuneus cerebral, cortico-portal cerebral tract will come, and this multifibrous synapses and forms the glomerular type of the synaptic network around the granular cells. And these will together will send the inhibitory input to the Golgi cells, and these multifibers will can activate almost 450 Purkinje cells, including with the help of the granular cells and other parallel fibers. Then come to the cerebral circular circuit. Then come to the neuronal activity of cerebral circuits. So there are four type of the circuits will be there. One is feed-forward inhibition of the Purkinje cells, then feed-forward inhibition of the granular cells, then feedback inhibition of the granular cells, and then reverberating circuits. Okay, so first we'll talk about feed-forward inhibit circuit. So whenever the Maury fibers comes in the brain. So these are the Maury fibers which coming from the different part of the brains, and that will causes the excitation of the granular cells by glomerulus formation. It excites the granular cells. So there will be excitation of these granular cells. The excitation of granular cells, it goes directly and forms the parallel fibers. So this is how the granular cells sends fibers. So this goes directly and forms parallel fibers. ओके ये सबको दिख रहा है पैरेलल फाइबर्स so this is the parallel fibers which formed by the granular cells, and this is usually excitatory in nature. Okay, these parallel fibers will affect basket cells. Where is the basket cells? Okay, this is the basket cell, and it causes the excitation of the basket cell. At the same time, these fibers also causes the excitation of the Purkinje cells. So basket cell excite किया, साथ में Purkinje cells को भी excite किया, and it also causes the excitation of the stellate cells also. So now come to the fibers, granular cell excite हो गया, it causes excitation of the both basket cells and Purkinje cells. Now as the basket cell excited, basket cell also sends output to the Purkinje cell, but which is a inhibitory nature. So पहले Purkinje cell excite होगी, immediately it will get inhibited by the same stimulus. So जैसे हमने glomerular cell को stimulate किया, and that stimulation will cause stimulation of the Purkinje cells, and Purkinje cells sends the output to the deep cerebral nucleus. Output जैसे क्या उतने ही देर में basket cells inhibition हो गया, and it will get inhibited. So it will actually limit the duration of the excitation of the Purkinje cells. वो शॉर्ट टाइम के लिए सेम स्टिमुलस से इमीडिएटली होता है. तो आप सोचोगे कि नहीं सर बास्केट सेल तो स्टिमुलेट भी हो रही है, तो पहले इनिबिशन क्यों नहीं करती? तो इफ यू नो द कंसेप्ट ऑफ सिनेप्टिक डिले, तो हियर इज ओनली वन सिनेप्स इज इन्वॉल्व, दैट इज ग्रैनुलर सेल से एक्साइटेशन हो गया, एक सिनेप्स हुआ और इट कॉजेज एक्साइटमेंट. हियर देयर इज वन सिनेप्स हियर व्हिच कॉजेज एक्साइटमेंट ऑफ द basket cell, and there is another synapse. So it will take little bit more delay. So एक सिनेप्टिक डिले का जितना ड्यूरेशन होगा जो विद मिली सेकेंड्स, उतने ड्यूरेशन के लिए Purkinje सेल्स एक्साइट होगा. दिस इज कॉल्ड फीड फॉरवर्ड इनिबिशन. द सेम थिंग विच एक्साइटेड it immediately forward by anticipating it, and it is causes inhibition of the Purkinje cells. So this is one circuit which causes feed forward inhibition of the Purkinje cells. समझ में आ रहा है?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
चलो बताओ व्हाट इज फीड फॉरवर्ड इनहिबिशन ऑफ द Purkinje cells कैसे होता है? किसको किसको समझ में आया? किसको समझ में आया? Then come to the feed-forward inhibition of granule cells. Now, as a mosifibers stimulated, it causes excitation of this glomerular synapses, and that excites the granule cells. So the granule cell will get excited, and these granule cells will send output to both inhibitory output through these parallel fibers, and it inhibits the both. This is Golgi cells, and also it inhibits these Golgi cells. Okay, so the granule cells get inhibited, and this sends to the axons of the granule cells, and it sends to the Golgi cells and causes excitement of the Golgi cells. But Golgi cells is a inhibitory in nature, and it inhibitory attach synapses with the parallel fibers and causes inhibition of the this parallel fibers and causes inhibition of the granule cells. So the granule cell खुद ही excite होती है, and it causes its own inhibition. So excitation followed by the inhibition. This is example of feedback inhibition of the granule cells. Okay, sorry, feed forward रह गया पहले. Okay, so if you see this in feed forward, the inhibition of the granule cells get stimulated by the glomerulus through the mosifibers, and the mosifibers causes excitation of the parallel fibers, but at the same time the granule cells also causes excitation of the Golgi cells, and which sends the inhibition of the inhibitory inputs, and that causes inhibition of the granule cell itself, and this is called feed forward inhibition of the granule cells. The second type of the inhibition is feedback inhibition of the granule cells. This also occurs through the Golgi cells. If you see, this Golgi cells causes excitation of the granule cells. Granule cells inhibit the glomerulus directly, and that will causes the inhibition of the Golgi granule cells, and that is example of feedback inhibition of the granule cells. Then come to the reverberating circuits. These occur through the Purkinje cells. So granule cells and Purkinje cells together will excite and causes each other excitation and inhibition, followed by the excitation and inhibition. So here we will see the examples of the two different cells. So first cell we call is the granule C1 or G1 or G2, and similarly we call it Purkinje cells PC1 and PC2. And this okay, to understand this, now we'll see the how reverberating circuit will be there. So in step 1, what will happen? So suppose you are making supination moment. So supination moment will stimulate the one particular cells in the body. That Purkinje's the granule cell will excite and will excite the Purkinje cells. At the same time, it is excited by through the climbing fibers. Mosifibers से जो inhibitions हो रहे थे, the climbing fibers will stimulate, and that will stimulate the Purkinje cell. Once the Purkinje cell is stimulated, it also stimulates the granule cells, and causes Purkinje cell causes the supination of the muscle. Second step, the supination moment it contract, there will be the reciprocative receptor will be proprioceptive receptor will be stimulated, and that proprioceptive receptor is stimulated will go through the mosifibers and causes the excitation of the granular cells. So C1 will be excited. Now here the PC1 excited, and because of changes occur in proprioceptor, that will excite the granular cell in the cerebellum. Once the granular cell excited, that excitation will causes send you up to parallel fibers, will causes excitation of the Purkinje cells. Once the Purkinje cells will excited, and that will causes more excitation of supination moment, and again it cause the excitation of the granular cells. So same circuit will be continuously going on. So supination, pronation, supination, pronation. Supination moment has been repeatedly acting after few seconds. Okay, this is how the reverberating circuit will be set. Now second action is a pronation. So supination is followed by the pronation, which is stimulate the second type of the Purkinje cells through the climbing factor, and that will cause a pronation moment. Pronation moment will stimulate another proprioceptive receptors, and that will stimulate the second set of the granular cells, that is type C cells, That's activation of the second type of the granule cell will activate another same type of the Purkinje cells, and that will causes a stimulation of the Purkinje cells that will again excite the Purkinje cells. So supination will be there, followed by the pronation, and immediately pronation occurs. Second set of the Purkinje cells will be the supination, pronation. That alternate movement will be continuously occur. That will create a reverberating circuit, and that is important for any rhythmic movement when you are doing in our body. So, जब भी rhythmic movement will trigger the 2-3 supination pronation movement, the reverberating circuit will occur, and then it doesn't have to go to the cerebral motor cortex. It will occur only at the cerebellar level. This is how the reverberating circuit will be work. Now come to the activity of the deep nuclei. So deep cellular nuclei is usually made up of excitatory neurons, and they receive the collateral from the Maury fibers, clambin fibers, and also through the Purkinje cells. So sensory inputs will coming from the nucleus continuously keep on exciting the deep cellular nuclei, and then this nucleus sends the excited impulse to thalamus and brain stems and causes a voluntary movement. Purkinje cells usually sends the inhibitor output of deep cellular nuclei and will reduce the excitation of the deep cellular nucleus. And also, Purkinje cell also receives the inhibition from the vestibular nucleus. So Purkinje cell also inhibit the activities of the vestibular nuclei. So the deep cerebral nuclei receives the inputs usually excited from the both Maury fibers and clambin fiber, while it is inhibited by the Purkinje cells. Now come to the connections of the cerebellum. This is one of the very favorite question of the examiner. They will keep on asking how the cerebellum connected with the different part of the body. So first it will talk in the form of the peduncles. So inferior cerebral peduncles will receive the afferents from the inferior part of the brain, that is from the spinal cords. So it forms the dorsospinocerebellar tract that is coming inside the body. Then external arcuate fibers, then reticulocerebellar tract, oliocerebellar tract, and vestibular tract, which coming inside the cerebellum. So these are the afferent fibers. Then the fibers also goes through the inferior peduncle. These are the cerebellovestibular tract, cerebro-reticular tract, and cerebello-olivary tract. Then come to middle cerebral peduncle, and these are usually receives only afferent fibers, and these are cerebropontine cerebral fibers at connection with the basal ganglia and other commissure fibers which is coming from the both hemisphere, and they communicate with each other. Then come to the superior cerebral peduncles. These are usually received from the higher brain. So they come like a ventral spinocerebellar tract, which they receive from the spinal cord, and then tectocerebellar tract, which receives the fibers from the tectum. While efferent, it goes outside the fibers from the dental nucleus to dentorubral fibers, then from dental nucleus to thalamus, dentothalamic fibers, and also from cerebellar to the reticular fibers, which goes to the mid brain. So these are a few connections of the cerebellum. Then more specifically, if you want to see the various afferent connections of the cerebellum, then these are the first we talk about dorsospinal cerebellar tract. These are the uncrossed fibers which coming directly from the cells, and it goes into the ipsilateral side of the Clark's column of the cells and carries the proprioceptive information from the limbs of the same sides, and it goes to the cerebral peduncle, and on the same side it will distribute into the brain through spinocerebellum. Then come to the functions of the cerebellum. Cerebellum performs very important functions. Before starting these functions, we will take a break of 5 minutes, and then we will continue our class. Okay, now we'll start talk about the functions of cerebellum. So one of the important functions is started with the controlling of body posture and its equilibrium. Then it also regulates the muscle tone and influence on stretch reflex. It also play a very important role in a voluntary movement, like comparing function, dampening function, timing and programming of the voluntary movement, then ballistic moments and servo mechanism. Then other functions like it influence the autonomic system, conduction of ascending sensory pathways, and also control of eye movement. So first we'll talk about the role of the cerebellum in body posture and equilibrium. So cerebellum receives input from the vestibular apparatus through vestibular cerebellum tract, and which is really related to head position and body posture. It also receives input from the spinal cerebral tract and cranial cerebral tract, which is usually get inputs from the whole body, like its positions of the various joints and body position and present of the tone of the muscles. All those feedback will come. Then it also receives the fibers from the reticular fiber factor, and that usually gets the feedback from the extrapyramidal tracts, and it sends the output through the foconodular lobes and fastigial nucleus, and send it through the inferior peduncles, and send it to the vestibular nuclei and reticular nuclei, and there it has a effect on that. And through the vermal cerebral, it also sends feedback information to the spinal cord indirectly through the fastigial nucleus. Now, how it spinal cord works? So through the efferents, spinal cord receives information regarding the body position. Through the vestibular apparatus, get a idea about the position of the head, and through this it regulates the head movement and body movement, and try to maintain the body erect, and always try to maintain the balance between the body. And this is both involved in both conscious and unconscious participation to maintain the body position and equilibrium. Posture is important to maintain the any voluntary movement more effectively. To perform the voluntary movement more effectively, you need a proper posture. Apart from this, it also regulates the eye movements by controlling the activity of the third, fourth, and sixth cranial nerves, and connected them with the vestibular nucleus, and with the movement of the head, it moves the eyes so that the field of vision will be constant. Then it also has effect on a muscle tone and stretch reflex, and these all occur through by coordinating between the alpha and gamma motor neuron activity. And by it is usually has an inhibitory effect on that. So whenever there is a cerebellum will be activated, it will inhibit the alpha and gamma motor activity and try to reduce the tone of the muscle. So it receives the inputs from the different part of the body, like a spinal cerebral, cranial cerebral, alveocerebral tract, and get input regarding position of the muscles, joints, trunks, necks, and other part of the body. Then it also receives input from the auditory and visual tract, and by auditory and visual, it uh, organizes our body in the three-dimensional space, and it also receives cortical impulse through the pontine nuclei, and it sends output through the cerebral nucleus, like fastigial aviformia globus nucleus, and these outputs goes through the fastoglobular cerebello-reticular fibers and cerebello-olivary tracts, and it relay on alpha and gamma motor neurons, and it decreases the activity of alpha and gamma motor neuron, try to reduce the tone. So whenever this excitement occurs, this activity will be reduced, and that will increase the tone. When the excitement will be low, then it will increase the activity of the gamma motor neuron, and that will reduce the tone. So as it involves both alpha and gamma motor neuron, it also participates in stretch reflex. So whenever this damage occurs to the cerebellum, it will exaggerate the stretch reflex, and there will be minimum pendular. It will not able to stop the stretch reflex, so the reflex will also like a pendular reflex. Then another function important is control of voluntary movement. So cerebellum will not able to initiate the motor activity, but it will execute and coordinate the motor activity. So whenever the voluntary movement is activated, the continuous surveillance will be going on. It can increase or decrease the intensity of the muscle, speed of the muscle, so that whatever activity you are performing, that will be smooth performance of that movement should be occur. And this occur through two loops, that is open feedback loop and closed feedback loop. So if it comes to the open feedback loop, it is also called as cerebropontocerebellar tract and dento-rubothalamic cortical tract. So if you see these dento-rubular fibers, so this is a dentate nucleus of the cerebellum. Okay, from the dentate nucleus, this fibers comes and goes to the red nucleus of the opposite side, and from red nucleus it goes to thalamus, and from thalamus it goes to the motor cortex, and from there it receives the output and from the motor cortex, and it goes to the pontine nucleus, and from pontine nucleus it goes to the cerebellum, and this is how the circuit will be completed. And this cerebral circuit will increase the command on motor pyramidal tract and help in the programming of the voluntary movement. Then come to the closed feedback loop. The closed feedback loop has a two-part afferent loop and efferent loop. So afferent loop is coming from the pontocerebral fibers and parvoormal cerebral cortex. This goes from the fibers through the different part of the body and goes come to the brain. And efferent loops is coming from the going from the dentate nucleus, and it goes to the thalamus directly from dentate nucleus to the thalamus, and from thalamus it goes to the red nucleus. Sorry, first it goes to red nucleus. From red it goes to the thalamus, and then from cortex again come back to the red nucleus, and then pontine nucleus, and then it comes to the uh, mm, cerebral cortex through the rubrothalamic tract and rubroreticular tract and rubrospinal tract. So this is form closed circuit, and this closed circuit will also form servo mechanism and try to fill. So first important function in voluntary movement is comparator functions. So whenever you are performing any activity, that activity will confirm whether what your intended activity is performed or not, and accordingly your actual activity is performed or not. Like suppose now you are like you are playing basketball and you are standing down and you want to throw the ball into the basket. So your intention is ball should goes into the basket. So he will, what your previous activity, if you are done doing his first time, then uh, he will postulate the distance with a visual input and all those things, and his body will be decided, cerebellum will decide kitna force lagana, how much force I need to apply so that it can go, and then you throw the ball. But ball doesn't go, either it might be you're throwing it with less force, or you might throw it with the higher force. Then the second time you try it, then he will compare that action कि intended action से हमने ज़्यादा जोर से किया है, कम जोर से किया है, and then accordingly he will adjust it. Then you will try, so you'll go more closer. May not be perfect, but you'll go more closer. And if you keep on doing with that comparator function, slowly it will become more and more closer to your intended activity. One time will come, then you will able to put the ball into that basket. This is how the comparator functions work, and it improves your activity at the each level, and this usually occur through paravermal cerebellum part of the body, and it will always compare, and these all commands of the motor cortex and occur is finished within 10 to 20 milliseconds. Apart from the paravermal cerebellum, it also includes the thalamus and red nucleus. The second is damping action. So whenever you will do any voluntary movement, so what are extra or exaggerated muscle activity will occur, that will be dampened or prevented by increasing or decreasing the gamma motor activity, so that your muscle activity will be smooth. And that you can see this when this damage occur to the cerebellum. So when your damage occur to cerebellum, suppose you want to pick this pen on the table. Suppose this is a pen picked on the table, and if you want to put it, then normally with cerebellum, this is how voluntary movement occurring. But if cerebellum is not functioning, the movement will be like this. It will be exaggerated action will be there. That extra excitation of the voluntary muscles has not been able to damp by the body. Okay. Then timing and programming of the movement. So as a basal ganglia participate in planning and sequencing, similarly cerebellum will also participate, and it is usually with its past experiences. Whatever past activity is the same way there, that all will be put in, and according to that the plan will be modified so that will perform activity will be more accurate and more smooth will be there. That is how the planning will be there. Then timing will be there. Uh, because of this feedback mechanism, and it will be we continuously to keep on stimulating the Purkinje fibers, and that will work with short time, so that exact time will be calculated and the muscles will be excited only for that much time because of this reverberatory circuit and other feedback inhibition circuits. Then it also performs the predictive functions with its past experiences, and by seeing the visual and auditory responses, cerebellum can predict the action, like you're catching the ball. So you are seeing the ball coming with the speed and at what height you are coming, and you will predict कि नहीं यहाँ पे आएगा, यहाँ पे आएगा, कहाँ पे आएगा, and accordingly you will change your position. You predict it where it is coming, and you will try to approach that target or thing so that you can hold it at an appropriate time. So it also predict the various events which occurring in our day-to-day life. Then it control the ballistic movements. So rapid alternative movement, as I said, supination, pronation occur because of reverberatory circuits, and that is all coordinated by the cerebellum. Then it also work as a servo mechanism. So whenever the voluntary movement is occurring, because of it's continuously getting input through the different cerebellar tracts, and which are getting it from the inputs from the muscle spindle, Golgi tendon organ, and other proprioceptors. It will continuously voluntary movement will be always under the surveillance, and it will trying to see whether the intended action and actual action is more close to each other, and it will keep on correcting throughout the action. During going on the action also, it will be keep on correcting, and that is occurred because of connection between the cortex and cerebellum. So it also work as a servo mechanism. Apart from that, cerebellum also affect the autonomic nervous system, and it can increase autonomic system. Even autonomic nervous system will also can affect the cerebellum and can causes excitation and increase output from the cerebellum. Similarly, it also influence the connection of the ascending sensory pathways by directly affecting the reticular formation and also affecting the thalamus, and then control of the eyeball movement through the vestibular tract, oculomotor tract, trochlear and abducens nerves. Uh, this movement will involve, and that will have the coordinated movement of the eyeball so that you can fix your vision even if head is moving. Then applied aspect, whenever lesions occur cerebellum, what will happen? And that will, whenever there is damage occur to the cerebellum, that is called cerebellar dysfunction. So whenever there is a cerebellum is affected, the different type of the lesions will occur, and first and most important, it affects the tone of the muscles and postures. So when the complete damage of the cerebellum occurs, it will cause complete atonia, and if partial damage will be there, then it will cause a hypotonia. As you know, cerebellum sends a facilitatory input to the gamma motor activity, and that facilitatory input will be affected. That can lead to decrease in the tone. Then if unilateral lesion of the cerebellum occur, then there will be the attitude will change. The face will be rotated on the opposite side because of contraction of the healthy muscles. The shoulder will be lowered on the affected side because of there is no contraction. Then outward rotation and abduction of the leg will be there. So leg will be like outward rotation, abducted will be there. Trunk will be bent a little bit towards the affected side because of body weight is not able to taken by the uh, affected legs, and it pushed by the unaffected legs. Then deviation of the movement will be there. So whenever you try to go to the um, uh, pick the fence, so you will not goes to the exact site where it is you want to pick. It can go up either forward or behind. So it is deviated from the normal movement. So it will be deviation of the movements will be there. Then deep reflexes will become weak and pendular. Then equilibrium will be disturbed, so patient will not able to stand properly, or you will not able to walk properly. So it will usually walk with a wide base. It will says side by side, like he has a under the influence of the alcohol. So many times it also called as a drunken gait. He will not able to maintain the upright position, and specifically when eyes are closed, then he will fall, and this is usually because of cerebellum is not involved, and if his vestibular system is involved, then it definitely is going to fall, and this sign is called Romberg sign. Then there will be disturbance in the voluntary movement, like ataxia will be there. Ataxia is like a patient will not able to walk in a straight line. So there will be we'll ask him to walk with heel toe to heel like there. That will not be possible for them. Then movement will be not coordinated, so there will be not composed properly. So it will decomposition of the movement. Then synchronization will not be there. If you speak, the speak will be like a tone will not be the same. It can increase and decrease in the tone. Force applied on the words production will not be there. This mechanism is called dysmetria, and all those things will be there. So speech will not be there. Then muscles sometimes contract too much or sometimes not contract that much. So that will be occur there. Then there will be the tremors. Tremors, when patient has the rest, there will be no tremor. But when your person try to do any voluntary movement, then the tremors will be observed. And these are type of tremors are called intentional tremor, and tremor will be keep on increasing as the patient will reach to the target point, and there will be the tremor. Then nystagmus, there will be the involuntary movement of the eyes. You can see when you will see in a close direction, then you will see the involuntary movement of the that is called nystagmus. Then there will be scanning speech or dysarthria. Words will not be produced properly. Slur speech. It is more like a person is under the influence of the uh, alcohol. Then volume and tone of the speech will be keep on changing. It will not be regular, and it will not be appropriate for the place and occasion. Then astrasia, which is a unsteady voluntary movement. So voluntary movement will not be proper. Then also there is a called chariot triad, where syndrome characterized by nystagmus, intentional tumor, and scanning, which this is usually seen in cerebellum. Then come to the cerebellar function test. So these are the few cerebral functions test which we will do try to diagnose with the damage of the cerebrum or occur or not there. So first is a finger nose test. We'll ask the individual to hold his finger on in front of the eyes, and we'll ask him to touch his own nose and finger. First with open eyes, then with the closed eyes. Okay, like this. Similarly, we'll ask to do with the opposite finger. So if person has a cerebral damage, he will not able to do with open eyes also and close eyes also. Any person has a cerebellum is working normally, but the sensory input is affected, like a vestibular apparatus has been affected, or proprioceptor system has been affected, like diabetic neuropathy, nephropathy, and all those things. Neuropathy and all those things. Then this fingernails test will not be done properly with closed eyes. So if it is not done positively, then we call it as fingernails test is positive. So if fingernails test positive with open eyes, the cerebral lesion is there. If fingernails test is positive with the closed eyes, but negative with the open eyes, then we call it as a sensory disturbance will be there. And if fingernails test is negative, then it's normal. Then a diadodokinesia will ask him to do supination and pronation movement continuously, and he'll be able to do with open eyes or closed eyes, both will be there. Then a rebound phenomena will be there, where person will ask to hold and it will hit him whose hand moment to remove the force, because he will not able to control. Then gait test will ask him to stand properly and ask him to walk. So that will not be possible, and will like a drunken swaying gait will be there. So drunken gait will be there. The Romberg sign will test, and then we'll ask to object place on the table, and he will goes beyond the targeted organ or before the target point. And that is called past pointing. So these are a few tests which can perform, which can diagnose a cerebellar lesion. So that's all for today. Any questions, any doubt? So okay, bye, have a nice day.